So Regenesis is the process of midwifing and rebirthing the human condition on all levels. If we take a moment to consider the concept that it invokes an image of letting go of all that doesn't work personally, socially, and globally, and allowing that to be compost for an innovative approach to build, design, and architect the future that we truly want. We must focus on every aspect of the life experience, from spirituality to art and culture, the environment and stewardship of it, health and wellness of spirit, mind, and body, the idea of alternative economic and governance models, green and renewable energy, appropriate science and technology, independent media and communications, and peace and justice.
Great, thank you so much. And again, a world of appreciation and respect for Shonda and her protege, Keith Spence, along with all the people at Earth Mother Network, and also all the people that have been involved over the last week, really all around the world. It's just such a huge project and undertaking. So a world of props and respect to all of you. And of course, we had the New Earth grandmothers come on as last Friday to start Earth Week, International Week of Peace. And then tomorrow night, we're going to finish with Gaia Vibes. And we actually have a beautiful studio where we're going to be broadcasting from 7 to 10 p.m. It'll be a world music dance party for peace, along with live drumming and multimedia visuals. And we'll be broadcasting that from Mandala Collective in Salida, Colorado. So it'll be a really fun way to end the week and all the work. We can all kind of, turn our Zoom on and turn on our speakers and dance and have fun. And then, of course, Sunday, I want to remind everyone about the Build Back Green event that's happening. It is a awareness and fundraiser for victims of the Maui fire. It's a benefit for Green to Gold and the Sustainability Transition Project, which will be implementing sustainable solutions on the ground in Maui. Everything from bioremediation to food security to water to working a lot with traditional ecological knowledge and bioharmonic design with some of the members of the indigenous community. Another beneficiary will be indigenous bridges with Lieben Huang And also we'll be working with another group that is actually feeding people on the ground there. So this is very grassroots. We're contributing a very small piece to the effort, but nonetheless, we're doing our part to help contribute. So again, thank you, everyone, for helping to make this possible. I'm Michael DiMartino, and I'm the director of Earthstock Foundation, which is dedicated to helping to educate and inspire people around taking stock in people, the planet, and the future, or these days to even have a future. And we're very dedicated to full spectrum regenerative design. So we have a great team of people coming on today. I want to welcome Andrew Mount, Maya Nartumid, Tina Leah from Hawaii, Jen Berryhill in Denver, and also Richard Parisi in Sacramento, and others. And just before we get into it, I just wanted to say the topic and the name of this roundtable is called Regenesis. And we decided about 2 years ago to start using that name because, obviously with everything that's happening right now, there is kind of a midwifing and rebirthing that's happening on the planet, both in the geomantic reality of land, but of course with people both in their lives and also, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And this is very much tied into Hopi prophecy and many teachings of the transition from the fourth to the fifth world, the idea of Koyaanisqatsi, that the world is out of balance and will come back into balance. And that might express itself in many different ways. Most of us are aware that climate change is real, whether you believe it's a natural 26,000 year cycle, as they talk about in the Mayan calendar, or if you believe that human beings are causing or contributing to it. We're not here to split hairs of divisiveness. We're here to agree upon that. It's kind of code red on planet Earth right now. And humanity is going through an amazing transformation and rebirth, or a regenesis, a recreation. And a big part of that is the role of what we call the divine feminine, which also ties into prophecies of the white buffalo calf woman, the birth of the white buffalo, which happened 29 years ago this August. And we'll be doing some things next year for the 30th anniversary. And that's one of the things that's actually happening out of this great gathering this week. But I just want to give you a quick framework, and then we're going to have our presenters on. And again, I'd like to ask everyone to please, have your mics off. If you have a question, raise your hand or put it into the chat, and then we will open it for more direct discourse with all of you in just a little bit. So I just want, as we start, for people to take a moment of what does the word regenesis invoke in your consciousness? What does it invoke in your energy body, in your emotional body, in your spiritual body? And a lot of people tend to think it even has a meaning of biblical proportions. We're not here to pontificate any particular religion, but it's a very provocative word. So part of this rebirthing is actually a coming together of all the different areas of what we call full spectrum regenerative culture or regenerative design. And many people have spoke about this. People from Barbara Marx Hubbard to Buckminster Fuller. So it's not a new concept, but it's something that's becoming very relevant and pertinent. And thank you, Andrew Mount, for your post in the chat. And again, people, let's share information. Let's stimulate the synergistic web of this time we have together today. So within this regenesis and this rebirthing of the human condition, this transition, everyone is reevaluating their priorities and reconsidering about how they can participate in this great transformation. Some people are actually choosing to leave the planet, and that's all part of it too. But for many of us, we have been specifically endowed with certain skill sets that I think are very pertinent and relative at this time on planet Earth. So in full spectrum regenerative design, let's think of a pie chart, right? We have a circle and there's different slices of the pie, but all the slices together make up the full pie. So part of that is the role of arts and culture, which are a very essential way that has been a living record of the human history and an expression of the diversity of all the different cultures and traditions and languages through music, through dance, through art, literature, painting. So all of these things are an essential, not just an archive, but a living expression of the richness and diversity of the human condition. And of course, that also parlays into spirituality. If we have solar panels on our house and we're trying to be green and sustainable, but yet we're miserable and unhappy and sad, we sometimes forget that in this regenerative movement and full spectrum design, that the human resilience is also part of that. We also have arts and culture, spirituality. We have health and wellness. And it's fascinating to see the whole awakening from ancient traditions to now of people realizing the connection between spirit, mind, body, and environment, and how that is such a key component to quality of life, but also the new technologies that are coming out, the new quantum technologies, scalar technologies. And of course, Andrew will talk about that in a little bit. He has some experience working with Tesla technology, but there's a whole treasure trove of new technologies that are coming out to help us have a healthier and happier life. Then the next step is we look at agriculture, food, farm, food security, water security, and the importance of not just having healthy food, preferably organic and biodynamic, but the importance of as we extract nutrients from the earth, how do we give back to, and this is a very popular idea in many indigenous cultures, how do we give back to the earth? How do we regenerate the soil? How do we turn the tide of desertification that's happening around the world? And all of us can really have a very profound part in helping to be part of that. And I'm seeing Maya's post. Yes, Maya will be with you in just a moment. Thank you for chiming in. So we have arts and culture, spirituality, health and well-being. We also have green energy, sustainable energy, non-toxic building, bioharmonic design. How do we plan, organize, and develop towns, cities? How do we even build our personal lives around certain things that work in harmony with nature, not against them? And of course, with all the wildfires and a lot of the things that are happening right now, we can see a lot of the bad design again is burning and crumbling and getting washed away. A lot of the infrastructure was really built on very old, archaic, Euro colonial centric models. After that, we have the role of course, independent media. And that's what we're doing right now. We can no longer just depend on corporate media to spoon feed us their agenda, what they want us to think, feel, and believe. But we have a lot of new ways that people are communicating on the internet, but also on the internet. I always want to keep the spiritual and multidimensional aspects of these various slices of the regenerative pie in focus as we talk about these things. And then there's other things like community resilience, about how do we deal with things like what just happened in Lahaina, Maui? How do we deal with issues when communities are under siege from natural catastrophes and those types of things? And of course, renewable energy. So all of these pieces work together. And this is something that I'm going to let Andrew speak about. Also, social permaculture. Human beings are part of this grand design of things. And sometimes we can be great attributes that we bring, and sometimes human beings can be detriment, especially if we could interview Mother Earth right now. I think she would have some stuff to say about the extractive, capitalistic attitude that people have toward the planet. So we're going to have Maya Nartumit come up in just a minute. And since she's here, we're probably going to start actually a few minutes early. And that'll be wonderful to hear from her. But I just want to, again, set the template of this discussion of Regenesis. We say new humanity, ? New earth, ? New paradigm, ? So, we want to provoke thought, and we want to hear from people about, what is new about it and what are we doing to help create this this fifth world, this new world. So that's just a little template. I'm not going to take up too much time. But part of the regenerative process also on the personal level is us looking at our ancestral karma, our ancestral lineages, doing reconciliation work with our genetic karma, our genetic astrology, looking at our perceptions of how we came into the world or incarnated, looking at our perceptions of how we perceive the world, usually a lot of times given to us from our parents and the environment that we were raised in, and how we project into the world what we perceive the world to be, and how we project and how that works in the great quantum field of they say quantum entanglement. I don't like the word entanglement. I've spent a lot of time not to be too entangled in things, but this quantum interweaving that happens through our collective consciousness now of 8 billion people on the planet, and how that affects the various dimensions and time and space. So with that, quantum interdependence, beautiful. There we go, Andrew, with another genius comment. So we're going to go now. I think Maya Nartum, quantum resonance. Ooh, super nice. Great job. See, I'm learning something already. So enough babbling by me. We're going to go over now to Maya Nartumid. She has over 50 years of oracling and recording her visions and her thoughts, her spiritual downloads. She works very deeply with quantum reality and the Akashic records. She also has a podcast and a broadcast on YouTube called Blue Star Rising. She actually has a very profound story. I don't know if we'll get to it in the time we have, but her work and relationship to the spiritual life and the spiritual side of Elvis Presley that was repressed. And she has the Vault of Thoth, which is 50 years of archives of her spiritual work. And she was actually one of the people that worked with NASA scientists when they created the California Institute of Integral Studies. So I would say she's not your street corner tarot reader. She has decades behind her and is really way out in front of the cutting edge of reality. She's here in Crestone, Colorado, and we're going to invite now Maya Christine Nartumid to come on and share a little bit with us about Regenesis, New Earth, New Humanity, New Paradigm. So welcome, Maya, to the International Peace Week broadcast on Earth Mother Network.
I don't see Maya in the room.
Okay, I think she came in.
Yeah.
I want to make sure someone's letting people in. So let's do this. We're getting such great feedback. Ooh, 13th in the room. We're going cosmic with this. So let's do this. Maya should be here in a minute, and I'm going to keep an eye out for her. Does anyone want to post anything in the chat? Any thoughts of what was been discussed so far? And then we'll welcome Maya. But all of these things are great. And I really think, and what's interesting, when I met Shonda, she had actually gotten downloads around the concept of Regenesis. And again, these are all concepts and words and archetypes in the collective conscious. It's not like no one particularly owns these, but we are really pushing. And for the last 4 years, doing Regenesis gatherings. We've done them in Mount Shasta. We've done them in Nevada City. We've done them in Santa Monica, California. We also did them in Sedona, Arizona, and Flagstaff. We've done them in Boulder. We do them currently here in Crestone, and we've done them also in Taos. So it's kind of a clarion call to people that are doing the work and are carrying the genetic messages about this new design that we're all embodying and initiating, to kind of come out and get to meet each other. And instead of trying to find each other and cat herding, that we're kind of blowing the symbolic trumpet to the four corners of the world, and we're asking the high awakened regenerative avatars to gather. It's kind of like a round table of lions. And I know a lot of you in your own work embody a lot of that essence. And in a lot of way, we are the ones, and now is the time that we've been waiting for. So part of this discourse today is to hopefully inspire you to continue to be an active member and to give you some more juice and inspiration about that. So while we're waiting for Maya in a minute, I just want to go over to Andrew. He's going to come up after Maya, but Andrew, could you just introduce yourself for a moment and touch on
Maya's
briefly?
on her way in. Everyone hold your questions to the end of the presentation, please. Yeah, Maya just came in the room.
Okay, great. Well, she missed her illustrious introduction. And welcome, Maya, from Crestone, Colorado, from the Valley of the Golden Sun Disk and location of a fabled ark. And she's here, and we're going to talk with her about Regenesis, but new earth, new humanity, new paradigm. So welcome to the International Peace Week broadcast of Regenesis on the Earth Mother Network. And I'm going to turn it over to you now, Maya, with your camera and your microphone on. So welcome.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, well, just a tiny bit about myself. And that is, as Michael said, I've been engaged in this communication, let's call it, for actually 55 plus years. I started when I'm consciously working with it when I was 18, and I'm a lot older now. So through the years, I've developed all of this material because I never did anything else. I just wrote it and wrote it and wrote it. And then when I could video and do the, all of that, well, then I put it in that form. So there's a lot of it. So I've developed it through all these many years. And now I feel so blessed in the age of technology, computers, and I used to do art with it, but now I can do AI art with it. Oh, I'm just so happy, I can work with it in those ways. So about the new earth, this came to me back in 1980 before I'd ever heard of any new earth, and my sources that were working with me, primarily the entity Thoth, introduced it to me step by step, not all at once, just a little bit at a time, and eventually called it the New Earth Star because of, he said that we're going inside the sun, not the sun. When we make a leap, a quantum leap, we'll go inside the sun of the blue star Rigel. And he told me about moving from a world system 1 to a world system 2. And the world system 1 is of entropy, and the world system 2 is of centropy. Of course, there's a lot more to it, but I'm really cutting it short here. And so that flashpoint, when it actually occurs, it's not like we all rise up in the air or anything. It is encodings, the light encodings, all the frequencies of certain areas on the planet he calls the golden Taya, and the frequencies of the humans who choose through frequency to experience that and go forth. Their light codes will translate as well. So what makes this different from just, for people anyway, just, transitioning from the body, leaving the body behind and going to another realm, another level? Well, the difference is, there are a lot of differences, but the main one is that we transfer from the baseline here to a new baseline, because when you transition out of the body, this is still the baseline. You're working at other zones, frequencies, electromagnetic fields, unless you entirely leave the sphere, which happens only after you've really done a lot of work with this. And right now, he says, everybody that's here is here for the long haul, to move, to create and move into the new earth. So the baseline changes. And he said it's necessary to take certain DNA codes and codes of the planets and spheres and the mountains and the rainbows with us into that realm. We're not duplicating. We're not saying, oh, we're going to create all exactly like we have it here. No, we don't want that. But it is a certain amount of, it's kind of like a homeopathy. You need a certain amount of the substance, to create the new earth. It's not a completely new world, because we're continuing with this program of light, but we're doing it by taking a quantum leap and divesting ourselves finally, of some of the older incrustations that have been plaguing us for a long time. There's so much to it. I have volumes on it, but I'm just placing it in this context for you now because I know there's only so much time. So that's my little spiel. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Well, could you talk before we do questions, Maya? Could you just talk a little bit about briefly your, if you can, your connection to Elvis, also the NASA scientist, and the founding based on your connection with him of California Institute of Integral Studies, and how that has really created this whole vault of thought, which I think is an incredible living archive of a lot of valuable information. And of course, a lot of this is coming out into the mainstream, but you were greatly ahead of your time. And what's fascinating to me is the depth and the articulation of the various nuances of these things that you can speak about for a moment.
Okay, well, we have to go back a long ways here to 1974. Now I was, as I say, consciously, because I was doing this work all along, but my mother and I said, okay, it's time to do this, because I wanted to do it. And she said, I will support you in that. And I was 17, I think. And that was in 1960. Well, I was 18, and that was in 1967. And that's when it really began that, okay, this is what we're going to do, because I found that I could do this, long story. So as we began all of this, then in 1974, we were watching, or 72, I believe, we were watching TV, and there was Edgar Mitchell, an astronaut, and he was saying he was getting ready to go to the moon, and when he got back, he was going to establish some kind of a parapsychological thing, He was leaving NASA. He didn't name it or anything. And my mother said, maybe we ought to contact him. So I said, okay. And so when he got back from the moon, already in the big parcels of stuff, for the astronaut, was a package of my sciences. And he told us later, he said, I wasn't going to open packages from people I didn't know. That was my secretary's job, to put a little note in, thank you for sending, and that was it, But he said his hand was literally drawn to the package. He opened it, he read some of it, and he called. He got my mother, and they had a nice long conversation before he ever got to me. And he said, I want to see you. Well, we lived conveniently in San Antonio, and he was in Houston. So he paid our way, we came down, and he and his little team investigated me. Again, a long story. I'll cut it short by saying he invited me back several times, and he told me, based on just a little bit of science as I presented to him in 1972, I have so much more now, and it's more sophisticated in the way I present it. But anyway, just based on that, he said, this is valid, but it's far beyond anything that we're doing now. Of course, it wouldn't be, well, it would, that was in 1972. This is in 2023. But at that time, that was, he said that's what it was. So I was impressed with that. And so he wanted to try to put it into formulas and stuff, and we worked with it a little while. And, this was so far back in time. And when I'd say something like whatever, and he'd say, well, that's beyond the speed of light. It wouldn't be so much of a problem now. But then he went, and I said, yeah, it is beyond the speed of light. And I remember he said, well, that's no small potatoes. So anyway, he kept working with me for a little while. It wasn't long, a few trips, And finally, he knelt down in front of me and said, Christine, you're the most exciting thing I've come across so far in this particular study. He said, I realize now I'd have to give everything else up and just research you. And he said, I'm just not prepared to do that. But, I wasn't heartbroken or anything, because he'd given me a great gift, the gift of recognition of what I was doing. So that's that little story. And there were other people like Lawrence, George L. Lawrence, who inventor of the first world's first laser engine. And there was a whole thing with, communicating with him, and a very interesting story. And Christopher
and also,
Bird.
and also I don't want to get too, but you also wrote a book about your interactions with Elvis Presley, which of course is a world-renowned musician, but a lot of people didn't know that he was as potent as a spiritual seeker
Yes.
and mystic as he was a performer. Could you share briefly a little bit about your connection to Elvis in your book?
Yeah. Well, I went to 36 of his concerts. I was not a groupie fan screaming or anything like that. I had a mission. And my mission was that I knew who he was. And I had, because I could look into the Akasha, and this is all from my perspective, of course. I have to say that. I always say that. This is my experience of life. But from my experience of life, I knew who he was. And I just presented him with little things. Now, at the first, I didn't know that he was into esoteric work, but I found that out from some of his friends that were present, not his hanger-on people, but some real friends. And so then I was even more wanting to give him these things. And boy, he came for him. When he saw me there with a book or a talisman or something for him, he was over there taking it from the stage right away. And I learned later he was talking to some very special friends of his phone friends that he kept aside from all of the other stuff, about my work. And he was very interested in it. And these phone friends, I learned about them from one of them who wrote a book after his passing. She and 16 other of the phone friends wrote this. She wrote it, but they contributed. And I love the book so much. I wrote to her as a fan of the book. And she said, "Are you Christine Hayes that wrote Red Tree?" That's my real name at the time. And I said, "Yes." Well, it turned out, that when Elvis gave her a list of his 22 books, and this was all esoteric and spiritual, he was totally involved in that. He said, "You don't read any other books in your whole life, read these." And he had a library of over 1,000 spiritual metaphysical books. And my book, Red Tree, was on the list. So that's where she found out about, she compared that. So anyway, we had struck up a friendship. This was in the 80s. And as a result, I guess the most dramatic thing was that I had known that Elvis came from the Blue Star Rigel, his soul. And so I told her that, and she knew I could not possibly have known that he had said that to her. And she had it on tape. He gave her permission to record some of his conversations with her on spiritual topics, primarily. So I have that now. I have a copy of that. Him saying that his soul came from the Blue Star Rigel. And she was so amazed by that, that she said, "You're the one that should write the book on the spiritual, the esoteric part of Elvis, because you talk like he did. And, there's that connection." So she gave me all these transcripts, and I wrote the book, Blue Star Love. And I just now have it out in the second edition because I wanted to add some things. But you can find on Amazon, Blue Star Love by Maya Nartumid. And so now, at this very late stage of all of this, it is very probable that there will be a documentary. And in that documentary, you will hear him speak about these things. And these audios have been validated twice, once in the 70s and once more recently, just a year ago. So anyway, that's very brief.
And I think what's fascinating, and I want to say, you've been very much at the cutting edge with behind the scenes, but the fact that you had this relationship with Elvis, I know he was also very intrigued and used to go to the Self-Realization Fellowship Center and was a follower of Yogananda. I mean, he had this whole other life that was really, if people recently saw the Elvis movie, that was suppressed. But the idea that, you have been this great jewel kind of working behind the scenes, inspiring and connecting with people, but now through technology and the relevance of your work is coming out to the world right now is incredible. So in the 5 minutes we have left, can you just talk about the Vault of Thoth? And also, again, before we end, just kind of give your vision of what this new humanity, new earth is, and what that might look like from your perspective of the work you've done over decades.
All that in 5 minutes? Okay, I'll try. So the Vault of Thoth is all the material, written. I have 20, 30, I don't know how many years of written material. Then I have Blue Star Rising YouTube channel, Blue Star Rising YouTube channel. I put out my videos that are short based on all those years of work. So why are we going? Well, why are we doing this? You know, it's like we've come to a passage, to a moment in time where we break a cycle. The cycle is always civilizations rise. They're all enlightened usually, not always, but even the enlightened ones, then they, you know, something goes wrong and they don't, you know, they miss the beat, and there they have to collapse again, and they start and they rise and they go down and they go, you know, it just goes on and on and on and on. But we're at a unique time on the planet. And I say, I don't know when this is going to happen, but it's not going to be thousands of years from now, maybe 100, maybe less. But we're at a unique time. The Atlanteans didn't have this time. The Lemurians didn't have this time. The Egyptians didn't have this time. We have this time. And that is where we are preparing for this incredible experience for those who choose not from some kind of belief system. They don't ever have to have heard of my work, but choose in their heart and soul the frequency that is required to take that quantum leap, which Thoth calls light principle 40 or LP40. And it's a flashpoint, but there's all kinds of things that lead up to that. You'll have to go to my YouTube channel to listen to that. And so we're literally able to not leave things behind, but translate them into the truer frequency of the divine light program that we began in the first place. Again, there's a whole history about that I have. Now, all of these things that I say are coming again from my life experience. And I can't prove any of it. I've had some interesting situations which would seem to validate them, many more than I've mentioned here. But it's not about proving anything. It's about sharing an experience. And if you resonate with it, then it becomes part of your journey experience only to give you the impetus to find that relativity in your own being.
Great. Thank you so much. And that's such a, you're so brilliant, and it's such an eloquent and poetic transition to our next presenter. I will say we have just another moment or two with Maya. It's 4:44 here in Crestone, Colorado. So we have the numerology working. We're going to go to Andrew Mount in a moment, but if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and I can ask Maya. But I do want to say that it's really fascinating because, you know, as myself being born in 1966, the Fire Horse literally coming in at the zeitgeist moment of the Woodstock generation, the anti-war movement, where health food, the explosion of human rights, civil rights, women's rights, all of these things were happening, the Back to the Land movement, the American Indian movement. And we saw this whole drastic transition from what was happening really in the 50s. And then we look at the beats, and then of course, going through that zeitgeist moment. And then as we came into the 70s and 80s, the New Age movement, the understanding and the unlocking of these secrets to the Western world, which many indigenous cultures have known about. And through all of this, Maya, that you've been there with this connection and understanding and sharing these messages and inspiring these people and having this influence. And now you're merging into the mainstream, and even the potential of this film you're working on is truly fascinating. And I think it's a great way to start this Regenesis broadcast today, to for people to know this isn't really something new. This is something ancient, and many people have been cultivating and germinating it for a while. But what is kind of new is that we're at the point where our spiritual practice and all this knowledge, it isn't just information, it turns into wisdom and action and actualization. So it's really a great honor to have you here today. And before we go to Andrew, who's going to talk about social permaculture and resonance and how we all work together like the roots of a tree, feeding all the branches, and how we create healthy communities and healthy systems of collaboration. Do you have any last final thoughts before you leave us?
Only that's really, I think it's really important for us, although we need to be knowledgeable and aware of all the things that are going on out there that are not too happy. It's really important for us to focus on that light And, be joyful. There's so much magic in the air. There's so many beautiful things that are about to burst forth. And we are the new Elohim. Those told me that back in the 1980s, that humanity is the new Elohim. And just remember that. And he told me recently, he said, fear not, for all of us. He said, I tell all light bearers on the planet, fear not, rise up. You were born to do this. So with that, I give you all an adieu, and thank you so much for inviting me, Michael.
The Ashland, Oregon area, and he's going to talk about social permaculture. So it's all you, brother, and thanks for taking some of your time to be here.
Well, namaste. I'm grateful to be a part of this community. It's quite synchronistic that Regenesis is the term we're using to describe our little collective here, because for 2 years in Ashland, I had a radio show called Rogue Regenesis, which refers to the Rogue River Valley in which I currently reside. But Regenesis was spelled with an S-Y-S because I believe we have to re-envision our systems in this process of, as you call it, regenerative design. And one of the first systems, of course, is economics. And that's what my show was largely dedicated to, but we moved into everything from consciousness to new physics. And I will touch on my 9-year grounding in the new science arena. I was a student of Bruce De Palma, who was a pioneer of new generator designs and anti-gravity research. And I am still pursuing those works, and I'll get into that in a moment. But as far as economics is concerned, people don't even know how to map it for the most part. But there are 2 axes on the graph of economics. One is the horizontal, one is the vertical. Vertical is the one we're most familiar with, of transactional and financial trades and wealth streams and commodities and all of that. But the more important one, especially in these times, is the horizontal axis, which are values such as resilience, security, safety, equity, access. These are the foundational bedrock values of the economic map that I think we're going to have to redraw, because, as you know, unless we want feet of clay economically, we need a really broad horizontal value chain. Typically, most people are just focused on, okay, how much wealth can I build? But if there isn't a base or a basis for of support in the horizontal value chain, then this obviously can only go so high before it topples, or just can only be, built so far before that house of cards is not going to be able to support the wider community. So what I did in 2009 was decided to move away from thinking of my own personal wealth, and I became a social entrepreneur. Now, a social entrepreneur must absolutely focus on horizontal value chain analysis. So I started working with food systems here in Southern Oregon, and I was a part of the effort to ban GMO cultivation in our county, which set off a huge furor in Oregon, because as soon as our county banned GMOs, the state passed a law saying no other county in the state could ever vote by itself to ban GMOs, and that only a state level referendum would ever be accepted again. But we succeeded. We got in under the wire before future activism of this sort was banned. It's a moratorium on future local regulation of agriculture. But hyper-local ideals are central to a horizontal value chain, because we cannot necessarily change the economy for everyone, but those with whom we have community, obviously. We were trying to protect organic seed producers in this valley, and give them equity, give them access, because as soon as GMOs get loose in a local environment, then there's no more organic seed industry, especially in certain areas of agriculture. So we succeeded in this, and it was one of the greatest triumphs of my life, because the community came together and we succeeded in getting 66% of the electorate, even in a rather conservative political environment, to vote against the cultivation of GMOs anywhere in Jackson County, Oregon. Now, when you meld vertical and horizontal value chains, and you do it well, that's called a hybrid value chain. And this is a term of art that people should investigate if they'd like. Hybrid value chain. And it means that you have just as much horizontal value as you do vertical. And this, to me, describes a sustainable economy of the future and must be one of the foundational underpinnings of regenerative design, especially in the economic area. Now, as far as social permaculture is concerned, one of the great principles of permaculture is something called stacked functions, where really nothing is ever wasted, and the regenerative model just functions all by itself, because every loop is closed within that system. There are no externalities. There is only an internalized sense of economy, even in the natural sense. Now, we talked a lot about that on my radio show, and how we could build the horizontal values into the food system, into the economy itself, perhaps through introducing meta-currencies. And what I know now is beginning to happen in Ashland is a program to collect food waste and turn it into compost. Very rudimentary program, but if every community did it, then the tens of millions of tons of wasted food in this country would go back into the ecosystem as nutrient. And, in the cradle to cradle model of Bill McDonough, he talks about that even technical nutrient needs to come back into recycled use. And there's such a redesign, there's such a comprehensive redesign required, that I do believe a hyper-local focus may be one of the only ways that we as activists can achieve the traction we're looking for in this wholesale redesign of our economies. And I don't have too much more to say about that, because the concept of a hybrid value chain in and of itself is very self-defining. You can define it yourself. You can figure out how to weave your community back into the economy, because there's so much disenfranchisement and isolation of people based on the fact that there's this rigid focus on the vertical axis of the economy. But where do the social dynamics come back in? Where do we ensure that for every step we take on this axis, there is some broadening of the horizontal value chain? Again, equity, access, fairness, resilience. When I had my own permaculture farm, I ensured that I would not subscribe anyone to my community supported agriculture program that I launched, except nursing mothers, because I wanted those babies and their mothers to have the freshest, most vital foods. And that was my way of adding a horizontal value to the value chain. Now, just in the last couple of minutes that I have, I will mention that the new energy work that I'm doing has been a lifetime pursuit since I was 19. I'm now almost 55. I am one of the more knowledgeable researchers in the area of torsion field physics. I study electromagnetism and rotational force, and I am working with allies all over the world to build a laboratory to further these researches, because it is entirely possible that we could work on perpetual motion in our lifetimes, dispense with all consumptive forms of energy, fossil fuels, hydrogen fuel cells, electric power grids, everything in this century, as we begin to unlock the secrets of torsion technology. And that is something that is going to have to be discussed in a future forum. So that's what I have to share for now.
Great. Thank you so much, Andrew. And are you still doing your radio show? And can you put into the chat of how people can connect with you? And
I'll
I think
put
what's
something in the chat, but I'm not doing my radio show. I still have a podcast, and I can send people audio from the show. I used to have a full archive online, but the station erased it. So I have those archives, but no, I'm not doing the show.
Okay, well, this is what we're going to do. Put your information in the chat. And there's a couple of things before we're going to bring in Tia, and then we're going to go over to Jen Berryhill. I know there was a typo in the schedule, so we're going to go Tia and then Jen. But point is, we've been talking, you and I, about social permaculture. And, we tend to look at regenerative design like, okay, food and water security, and what you're talking about, the idea of energy equity, where it can't be just the haves and the have-nots and profit over people alone, but there has to be an ethics to the idea of prosperity and also economic models. And there's a lot of different ones out there. So thank you for talking about that, and which is an important part as we spoke about regenerative full spectrum design, because again, arts and culture, spirituality, health and wellness.
Well, that ethic is equity. That means everyone gets to participate on an equal basis, and there aren't the haves and the have-nots. This great disparity of wealth in this country and around the world is one of the greatest challenges we have.
Absolutely. And of course, we're talking about full spectrum design as a pie with different slices. Again, arts and culture, spirituality, health and wellness, green renewable energy and technologies, economics. We're talking also about governance. We're talking about independent media, and how all these pieces, whatever people's individual superpower is now, we're starting to bring these pieces back together as part of this regenesis and midwifing, this new paradigm. And of course, today, the topic was regenesis, new earth, new humanity, new paradigm. So with that, I want to thank Andrew for coming on. I want to remind people that we also are launching Regenerative Media TV on Sunday with the broadcast of Build Back Green, which is an awareness raiser and fundraiser for victims of the fire in Maui. And I love what you spoke about. You spoke about GMOs, you spoke about all these things. And I have to say, it's fall equinox, and the universe is kind of architecting us along, because our next speaker is going to talk about actually genetically modified organisms. And actually, she's in the ground of Hawaii right now, where there's an experiment going on around that. But she's going to speak a little bit about what the work that she's doing there. And of course, we're all over the map today with our speakers. We had Maya talking about from a metaphysical perspective of new earth, new humanity, new paradigm, new design. And the question we're posing to everyone today is kind of what's new about it and what has to change. So again, Andrew, thank you for being on the call. And we're going to go over now. I believe she's on the call live in Hawaii. We're going to bring our next speaker on, who actually I just got an opportunity to meet recently through a mutual friend. I've been working with Rachel Linden for a long time around her Green Lifestyles Network. She's doing a lot about stopping the use of environmental toxins. If we look at golf courses, playgrounds, schools, parks, there's so much pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, and things that are used that they're continuing to poison our communities and our children and our groundwater and our soil. So we're going to go now over to Tina Leah, and she's going to talk a little bit about what's happening in real time, not just about the fire, but other things that are happening as part of this maybe strange new design aspect of people who have a different narrative and a different agenda. So welcome to the broadcast, Tina Leah.
Aloha, it's so great to be here, and I am here on Maui, so I'm somewhat near the area of where we just had this recent devastation, and we could probably do a whole other show about what's going on with that. And we're trying to stay positive here today and plan the new future and everything, but I do have just a heads up on how this agenda is getting put forward. Maui, I feel Maui specifically is under attack right now with this biotech agenda, the smart city agenda, the Agenda 2030, the synthetic biology, and there's been a lot going on here for a few years more, things that I'm becoming more and more aware of as I research this. But what I want to focus on today is the mosquito release project that our state and its multi-agency partnership has already unleashed on the island of Maui and intends to unleash on all the islands moving forward, with some pretty serious implications of where they want to go with that. But to stay positive, I want to say that this is also about independent media and independent journalism and activism, and that's what I've been doing for the last over a year, focused on this project, and we are still very much in this fight. We've taken the state to court, and we're still in the process with that, and we are raising awareness and changing the narrative. And so I want to keep that hopeful tone before I launch into I have a PowerPoint here that I'm going to go through as I won't go through it in detail as I sometimes do, but just to give an overview of what's going on here. And the main message is that a lot of these agendas that are going forward that are actually so not good for our health and our environment and our wildlife and human health are being put forth as something positive that is to address climate change, and that that these new technologies are the solution to environmental ways to do things environmentally, and this particular project is here on Maui with the mosquitoes is even tied to our Native Hawaiian culture, our resources, our natural resources through the federal government, and this is how things are being done. So it's good to be aware of that. The more that we uncover about this, the more concerning it is. And so I'm going to, if I can, do a share screen and go through a little bit about what's going on here and what we've uncovered with that process. So are we able to see the screen here? Okay,
you look
great.
good. Thank you. Thank you. All set, Tina.
Okay, great. So what's happening here? There's a bigger picture that I will get into as I move forward. But to start with, we learned over a year ago that our state and its multi-agency partnership that includes federal, state agencies, non-governmental organizations intend to release billions of these lab-infected mosquitoes per year on Maui. And the project area here is our East Maui natural reserve area, essentially Haleakala National Park, and many of the reserve areas where we have our endangered species. And so this is 64,666 acres of Maui. It's almost 14% of the entire island land acreage. And the intent of the project, again, presented as an environmental project, is supposed to be to save the endangered native honey creeper birds because they are being affected by avian malaria that's transmitted by the existing mosquitoes here. The narrative is that the climate change is causing the mosquitoes to be able to get up to the higher elevations where the birds were previously safe. And those are things we're looking at, but that's not the focus, because there are other ways they could address this that would not be so detrimental in so many ways. And a lot of the research that we've presented is, peer-reviewed studies about what could go wrong here. I'm working with a tropical disease expert that has decades of experience and has, written over 40 peer-reviewed papers about tropical disease, malaria specifically. He has major concerns about this project. He is our expert witness in our case against the state. And then, the agency's own documents is what I've been presenting this last year. So this is serious business. They actually may cause the extinction of the birds by doing this project. So a little bit about that. The first thing is that they are presenting this as some safe technology. It's been done all over the world. It's not true at all. It's actually completely experimental. They've never used this species of mosquito in this way. What they are intending to do, well, they've actually started with some of the initial releases. So what they are doing is they are infecting these mosquitoes with a bacteria called Wolbachia, and they do this in the lab. And this Wolbachia is to cause the mosquitoes to be incapable of successfully breeding with the mosquitoes here, because if they have an incompatible strain of the bacteria, then the offspring are not viable. So that's the intent of the project. There's questions about, how effective that may or may not be, but the real issue is that they've never used this southern house mosquito, the Culex quinque fasciatus, with this Wolbachia technology. This is the first time that this has been done in a standalone field release. The project area, again, is enormous, and it's the largest ever globally to date, using any kind of the Wolbachia infected mosquitoes. And the previous largest were in Texas and Florida, which are two red flag concerns about mosquito issues recently. It's never been used for conservation. They want to release up to 775,992,000 of these mosquitoes a week, and for at least 20 years. Basically indefinitely when we get further into their documents, but their initial presentation was at least 20 years they're going to do this. You have to do it. You can never stop. That's what this technology is. It looks like I'm going to move out of time pretty quickly here. So I'm going to go through very quickly. There are diseases, human diseases that these mosquitoes can transmit. And that includes West Nile virus. And that is a disease that peer-reviewed studies have found that the Wolbachia bacteria can cause mosquitoes to become more capable of transmitting West Nile virus, which birds can also get. And studies have also shown that they can be more capable of transmitting avian malaria. So again, this project could endanger the birds further, actually. So we're seriously concerned about that. We found no pathogen screenings of the mosquitoes coming in. We did a FOIA request on that, and they are not giving that information. They're saying that it's confidential, proprietary information. So we don't even know what diseases they're being screened for. We have biosecurity threats and no protocols for that. And they're also they're telling everyone they're only releasing male mosquitoes. They're actually going to be releasing females. They've admitted it. It's a part of the sorting process that's imperfect. And the EPA allows them to release over 3,000 of the mosquitoes a week on Maui, the females that bite and breed and spread disease. And those females can produce another 160,000 more females in their lifespan. So that's a huge concern. But because we have limited time, I'm going to get into the what's going on with the future of this project and what's seriously concerning, which is number one, it turns out they're also planning to release mosquitoes to deal with human disease, and they're not telling anybody about that part of the project. It's separate from this part that they've presented to the public with the avian malaria, but they actually are bringing in 2 other species of mosquito through the Department of Health to address human concerns, and they're not giving us any information about that. They're going to release those on the ground. We don't know how, when, where, but they're working on a statewide assessment for that in order to bring, they're kind of Trojan horsing multiple things in with this avian malaria, which sounds great. We're going to save the birds. Turns out in our independent journalism that we found that our Department of Land and Natural Resources that is running this program, is I would say the lead agency on this project, has a lab here in Hawaii where they've been funded to build out an insectary to mass produce these mosquitoes. So that's a huge conflict of interest, and it's a major issue, especially looking at what they want to do moving forward, which includes getting into genetic modification of mosquitoes for release on the islands. And they have something called PGSIT, Precision Guided Sterile Insect Technique. It's CRISPR technology with the mosquitoes. And so again, they have Trojan horse, we don't know the time frame. There's different time frames have been thrown out on this, but it's coming, and they want to do that in their lab, and that's their agenda. So turns out, and these are all their own documents that I'm showing you from the multiple agencies involved here. They want to do gene drives, the precision guided, the CRISPR technology. They want to improve malaria resistance in birds. Well, that sounds like a noble cause. What's going to happen there? So, moving forward, turns out, and this has come up a couple times, they're talking about this particular paper is Atkinson and LaPointe are two of the guys that work with the U.S. Geological Survey, one of the agencies involved in this project, and they are talking about facilitated adaptation to save the endangered birds from malaria. So how are we going to make them more resistant to malaria? Facilitated adaptation involves genetic engineering using CRISPR technology. So actually, if you read that paper, it talks about how they want to genetically modify the EEV bird, one of the native honey creepers that is threatened, and make it more resistant to avian malaria and release it into the wild. And as we just heard earlier, once you release a genetically modified organism into the environment, it can take over. There's no control anymore. And so this is highly concerning. I don't like at all the direction that this is going and how it's been presented to the public so sneakily, that it is an environmental project and we're trying to save the birds. And really what they're trying to do is get this stronghold with their biotechnology and all the funding and the cash cow that comes with that, and their lab. And here's the EEV, this is a beautiful, natural, God-made EEV bird. And that's what we want to see thriving, not something that was created in the lab so that these guys can further their financial agenda and whatever other nefarious agenda they may have. And just to wrap it up, in line with that, the White House released last year, around this time last year, an executive order on advancing biotechnology and biomanufacturing, and specifically said we need to develop genetic engineering technologies and techniques to be able to write circuitry for cells and predictably program biology in the same way in which we write software and program computers. And that's what's happening here on Maui. This is not an environmental project. This is not our government actually caring about the health of these birds, about honoring the Native Hawaiian ancestry and culture. It's actually the opposite of that. And it's really very disturbing that they've presented it that way. And quite a lot of people are, believing that. And just a couple more things to wrap this up. We did find that, because people are always asking, are there connections with the mosquitoes and Bill Gates and George Soros? And we haven't found a direct connection yet with their funding, but one of the labs that's supplying these mosquitoes for the avian malaria project is called Verily Life Sciences. And they're a subsidiary of Google's parent company, Alphabet. And of course, George Soros is heavily invested in Alphabet, and all of that is biotech and tied into a lot of the bigger agenda going on here, including what's going on with the smart cities and the fire here on Maui, and Google being potentially involved in that, and the AI government structure that they want to implement here, which is not conjecture. We've got the documents from their own.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, okay, so that's basically what's going on. And yes, Bill Gates also did help to, his Gates Foundation helped to fund the initial research of the other lab that is providing the mosquitoes. Kauai is going to have be the next target for this. They're working on that, and they want this to go on in perpetuity. They never want it to stop. So this is their own documents. So thank you. I will close my share screen, and just to wrap that up, we are, yes, challenging them in court. And so that is still an ongoing case, and hopefully our hearing will be continuing. It did get postponed because of the fires here, but we're still very much in this and want to keep everyone updated and keep going.
Great, thank you. And I want to invite you as we continue to roll out regenerative media TV in the future. You can go to rmtvonline.com. These are the types of things we're going to be educating people about, along with curriculums and various solutions that they can implement as far as working with consultants. So again, I want to commend Shonda and Earth Mother Network and all the work that they do around so many things, hemp, alternative energy. But of course, I want to invite people just to look up the concept of transhumanism. It is part of an agenda being rolled out. And I used to live in California. I moved, but we saw what happened when they introduced genetically modified salmon into the watershed from the San Francisco Bay all the way up to Mount Shasta, and they were actually predatory towards other animals. So I think we all can agree, trying to humanly engineer nature's divine intelligence in a way that we think is superior usually is a recipe for disaster and not good things to happen. So Tina, thank you so much for coming on the discussion here, and greatly appreciate your passion and due diligence and work around this topic. I actually saw a video the other day, since we're doing the Build Back Green event on Sunday. And part of that is we have to look towards nature's intelligence for solutions. It can't always be technology or created in a lab. That this is a very important time that we have to start making people aware with the spotlight on Maui and Hawaii about what's happening there, and the potential rollout of other narratives and agendas, not building back green, not building back in relationship to natural intelligence and indigenous people and traditional ecological knowledge and sustainability and green. That design doesn't work. So really is an important issue, and there's so many issues now, but you're really at the crossroads of such an important issue. So thank you for coming on and spending some time with us today. And we look forward to having you on Sunday, where the whole 4 hours is just focused on Maui and regenerative solutions. So thank you so much for your time. And with that, I'm looking at my schedule. We have just 2 more presenters. Recently, I had the opportunity to participate in an event in Aztec, New Mexico area at a place called Tico Time. So we have one more presenter. We have Jen Berryhill coming up, and then we'll finish with Richard Parisi calling in from So, even all of us talking today, we can see how closely we're all woven together. I was just speaking about genetically modified fish and salmon in the San Francisco Bay and Sacramento River watershed and the impact of that. And our last speaker today will be talking about his work. He's also a boat captain in the Sacramento River Delta, which is, I believe, the second largest delta in the world. I participated in an event a couple of weeks ago. It was cultivated, or I think originally by Chief Golden Eagle and a lot of the people that were working with him. But I got an opportunity to do the Universal Language Workshop. She is a force of nature. She's an incredible dynamo. Her and her husband, who is involved in a lot of indigenous practices, were just extremely inspiring. But I want to introduce our next guest, and she is a representative and I believe the founder of, there's so many messages coming in right now. And I do want to remind people that we are broadcasting live as part of International Peace Week. And these will be archived, and these chats will go on for a long time and continue to reach a lot of people. Okay, so next we have Jen Berryhill from Moons of Ascension. She's going to talk a little bit about her work and the Sunfire Festival that recently occurred in Tico Time, and tell us how this ties into the idea and the visions her work with Chief Golden Eagle and the idea of new earth, new humanity, new paradigm. So welcome to the broadcast live. I believe she's in the Denver area, Jen Berryhill.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to be here with you all today. Thank you, Michael.
Everyone, please turn your mics off except Jen.
Yeah, so I apologize. I'm actually just stepping into this beautiful gathering with you here. I caught a little bit of your presentation, Andrew, and I just caught yours, Tia, and kind of just tuning into the energy here. And I'm really excited, just based on the little bit that I've gotten to observe so far. So thank you so much for all the beautiful work that you are all doing in creating just a new world for us all to embrace and hopefully, bring online so that we can have a more sustainable life. And so, yeah, just a little bit about me. My name's Jen Berryhill. I'm coming in from the Denver area in Colorado, and recently produced my first festival, which was called the Sunfire Festival that Michael was part of. And leading up to that, I had been a conference producer in tandem with Chief Golden Light Eagle for about 8 years. I met him at my first Star Knowledge Conference in 2010. And he had been working very hard to bring forth information, spiritual information, that was very galactic and very nature-based. And so he had a mission to bring this information out to the world. And he actually developed quite a global following for quite some years over since he started in 1996. And he had been teaching about the universal and spiritual laws of creation and the symbols that work with these energies and the messengers, that actually everything ties into a 13 moon calendar system. And so each month we step into a new influence, and there's new tests, there's new gates that open, there's new influences that come through. And so when you start to learn these ways and this information, it can actually help you on your, on your ascension path. So my big passion right now is to carry forward those teachings. And Chief Golden Light Eagle did drop his robe in 2021. And so I needed to kind of find a way to bridge into a new way for this information to keep moving forward, because there's been a lot of resistance against it. So that's when the vision for Sunfire Fest came online. And it was just this extremely potent and powerful process of even just from its inception through actually producing the whole thing and then showing up on the land to do the event itself was quite an initiation, because we were there to do some really, really potent work. And kind of the elements that were part of that festival that made it just a little bit different than others, because they each have their own unique frequency and energy vibration. We were working with the 5 arts of harmony. And in that includes the music, the dance, the natural medicine, agriculture, permaculture, the food systems, but is also very big into the way of the stars, the astrology piece. So actually moving more into a natural rhythm with our galactic family, and being more harmonized with Mother Earth. And through these 5 arts of harmony is how we as humans, having a spiritual pathway or spiritual opportunity to really anchor in more of what we bring as our gifts. And so we all have this unique piece to this collective puzzle that we're really trying to piece everything back together, because we've lived in separation for so long in this aspect of duality. So really, we're moving hopefully out of duality and more into this unity consciousness. And having tools and tips and ways to do that are really paramount these days, as people are they're coming online and maybe starting their ascension journey or have been on their ascension journey for quite some time, and they're ready to level up. So this was a way for us to gather on very, very sacred land and to bring all of these 5 arts, these harmonies together in a collective manner, heart to heart, eye to eye, hand to hand, with the earth, with the stars, with the sun, with the moon, with the water, with all of the elements, the fire, we had a fire burning for 4 days for this event to just help, really help with that transmutation of what we were all there to let go of. And the theme that developed for this particular event was really releasing the generational ancestral trauma that has been plagued in humanity. One example being the indigenous cultures that had been placed on reservations and, went through the Trail of Tears and all of those things. And it's exciting because there's people now that they really want to let go of that generational trauma because they don't want it to continue into their bloodline, into their next 7 generations. And really, it's like it takes one person to stand up and say, okay, I don't want this to affect my own children moving forward from here. And so we were holding really beautiful sacred ceremonies to assist people that were really ready to move into a new paradigm of complete forgiveness of anything that's happened in the past, so that we can move forward with this new frequency of a new truth, a new belief system, and creating that new operating system within us that is very much more connected with the natural aspects of our world. And, through that way of separation, we've just all kind of maybe lost sight of that a little bit. And sometimes a lot, we've lost sight of a lot of it. Now that we're so technologically entangled with all of our devices and the internet and social media, and thank God we have it, because this is how we build awareness for the things that we need to see so that we can create the change that we want to gather and do together to pray for and create. And so I really love what you were sharing, Tia, because that's an example of something that we need to be aware of so that we can create a focused intention around it. And that's kind of where I step in, as I love to create these events which get people together to actually do spiritual practice, to create ceremony around something that we know is really not good for us and not good for the earth and not good for all of our relatives that live here. And coming together with a really sincere heart, in a sincere way, with that focused intention, and implementing a new level of a spiritual aspect that can help create that change. And so this has been a long time passion of mine since I've been working with Chief Golden Light Eagle. We would get together, we would do these conferences. And the biggest and most important piece that we would do would be the ceremony. So we would have the speakers come on, we would all share, we would start to see the theme, and then, develop, okay, so what is it that we really need to pay attention to so that we can do the bigger important work? And an example that what we would do at these conferences in the past is a lot of times we were praying for the air. We were also praying for the water. And so, we all know about the chemtrails and the things that they're doing to us through the air. And so in one particular event that we did, we sat down and we sang the Native American songs, and we called in our ancestors to help support us, and calling in the spiritual realms. So creating that as above, so below, and having that frequency match so that we could put in our intention, ask for help. And we would pray for the air, for that frequency to be cleared, and, to oxygenate the air so that it's, healthy for us again. It's clean, it's pure, it's back to its original state, the healthy state. And then I'm bringing this up because within, after leaving the conference and stepping back out into the world again and moving forward, those following few weeks, we had crisp, clear blue skies that lasted, for weeks. And, it was just a testament to the power of when we come together and do that, we can do this, we can create change. And, really our job is to just ask and release and, surrender that to spirit to move it, and then watch and wait and see what happens. And so we would see that happen. And that happened in a lot of ways. We prayed for the fire one time, and, we saw some things happen in Hawaii in Korea, where there were some changes made around the nuclear power plants and things like that. So it's very powerful work that we do. And I love that we're kind of tying all of these pieces in together, because we need to know what's going on. We can't bury our heads in the sand. And also we can't super attach emotionally to it to where we're losing our frequency and dropping down into a lower vibration where we're able to fuel what we don't want. But, you know, shifting that reality into, okay, let's focus on what we do want, and really using the energy of our heart and calling in the elements to manifest into a new created reality that is supported in the greater good of all. And so those are big pieces that I like to share about when we're gathering and doing these important pieces, you know, bringing our spiritual aspect into the 3D and into the collective, so that we can really anchor in those changes that we do want to see in the world together. So I'm kind of rambling here. I didn't have a big planned out topic or outline or anything. I just wanted to show up and see, you know, kind of where things are at here and share a little bit about Sunfire Fest. And since then, you know, I've had a lot of people reach out and thank me and really acknowledge how powerful that particular event was, calling it very transformational, life-changing, those kinds of things. And so, you know, that's just a reminder about the importance of gathering together, that, you know, it also reminds us that we're not alone. And it's really magical when we do get together with like-hearted people that want to see the same changes that we want for ourselves coming together, so that we can have important conversations. And a lot of times what I love is, you know, I'll start to talk to somebody and what they share, all of a sudden I just have major aha moments. And it was almost like this key that I've been waiting for a piece of something that I needed for myself to move into the next level for my own understanding and clarity and my own toolkit, let's just say.
And I think that's what's an amazing piece about what you did with Sunfire, because, you know, I remember going to festivals in the past. They had a very different feeling. It was more about like people partying, you know, maybe hot dogs and beer and, you know, what band is playing and this and that. And really over the last couple decade or so, so many of these festivals have become so much more intentional and so much more relevant and sober and pertinent to this emerging culture of people who are waking up and embodying the values of what this new humanity, new earth, new paradigm will look like. And you're definitely, you know, your work with Chief Golden Eagle and your team of people and what you did at Sunfire was, I know it was a huge undertaking and very groundbreaking, because you are embodying those values. So before we go, I want to remind you, please put your contact in the chat. And you know, sometimes if we're not scripted, we can just speak from spirit. And I know you're really connected. Some incredibly magical things happened at your event, Sunfire, including the circle and the arrival of the raven at the sacred fire and the sound healing and, you know, so many things. And I know I just was in contact today with people from the big Disclosure Festival that's coming up in Las Vegas. They're literally bringing this kind of consciousness right into what has been known as Sin City and gambling, but even Vegas is starting to transform too. And I want to remind people again, and to you, Jen, happy fall equinox. And also we just had a visitor come by the planet, and it's coming back around on October 12th, the Nishimuru ice comet. And also on October 14th is the full solar eclipse, which is passing right over the four corners of Utah, New Mexico, Colorado, and Arizona. And I know a lot of people are planning to head out to the Grand Canyon area and Monument Valley and Shiprock and stuff. So, you know, all these things are happening. And I know when you had spoke about Sunfire, you're very much in touch. You're getting these downloads and these communications into your light body, into your consciousness through the sun. And you're really helping to anchor a spiritual centeredness to all the education, advocacy, and activism work that people are doing in however way that they're doing it. So thank you for taking some time today to chime in. And I look forward to more collaboration here in the near future.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much.
So with that, we're almost to the end of the broadcast, and I want to welcome our next speaker. I actually just did a tour of California, a 5-week tour of the New Earth Expos put on by a friend of mine, Dean Price. And they were in Mount Shasta, which is another city of light. They were in Nevada City, another city of light, spoken about by Edgar Cayce, where people who are carriers of the light and light bringers and artists and healers and activists will start to gather. I'm in Crestone, which is another city of light. We also have Sedona. I mean, there's so many of these places like Maya and Nartumid spoke at the beginning that are coming online and being activated, and places that maybe people have gone to in the past are changing their dynamic and maybe going offline. But part of that tour was supporting our next speaker, Richard Parisi. He's the founder of the God cards, which are actually cards, not like tarot cards, but they're cards about the archetypes of the divine masculine. As we know, we're entering into the age of the white buffalo woman, the balancing of the masculine and the feminine. And part of that is educating men and women about divine masculine and what does that look like and what are the archetypes. A lot of people don't know. So with that, I'm going to switch over to Senor Parisi from the Sacramento River Delta. I'm not sure if he's on his boat or in his car, or he's a wild man, but he's going to talk to us for a little bit about his God cards and being the founder of the divine archetypes for men. So welcome to the broadcast, Richard Parisi.
Greetings, my beloveds. Not too used to the process of the Zoom, but can you hear me and see me okay?
Yes, you look good and you sound good.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you, great grandfather of grandfather Michael DiMartino, for continuing to weave the worlds together into beautiful transitions. I've developed this deck of cards based on, I spent a lot of time studying magic, studying oracles, the goddess cards, maybe some of you have seen and worked with in the past, tarot cards and things, have a very unique doorway that are reflections of our soul, are reflections of our environment, reflections that come forward. So as we've been talking a little bit today, I've been pulling some of these cards that seem to be relevant. So again, thank you, great grandfather of grandfather Michael, for being here. It's beautiful to hear about our Native American brothers and sisters. And Geronimo comes forward here because Geronimo, the byword here is Mother Earth runs in my blood. Geronimo was this Native American who said, no, stop to all the colonization efforts from white men into Turtle Island. Geronimo said no. He was the last standing no, and was devoted completely and utterly to not accepting what is happening. So Geronimo shows up. And I think what's happening more and more is we're becoming our own emissaries to bringing forward peace, grace, regenerative culture to the green man, bringing more green to the world, and what that means to protect nature, to protect the world, right? Showing up as our first responder in many instances where we're showing help. I'm here to serve. We're showing up in first responder, oftentimes maybe associated with a very hard edge, and but still as a first responder, we're showing up to help, right? Sometimes this might be in light of the outlaw, where we're working outside the laws in order to maintain natural law, natural order, right? We're getting on our crusade, our personal crusade, which is really important about how am I weaving into this mix as a crusader, as I stand for truth. Now, each of these cards has some more, lots of words behind them, and I invite you to maybe explore them, but it's really helping to define as man, woman, whatever gender identity. The masculine archetype is one of action and activation and following divine feminine guidance. And as we come into our own power as a crusader on our own crusade, we can find many ways to impact the world. And part of that is, there's a conversation about the Illuminati, right? What are they doing? Spraying the planets, releasing mosquitoes. I just heard about this mosquito issue coming up where Bill Gates wants to release mosquitoes. It's like, what? I can't even fathom. What they're thinking, okay? I just cannot get it. That's these folks. Who are they? What are they? And why are they? Interesting. So one of the things we can do as human beings in our everyday work is becoming a corporate shaman. There's a really wonderful book written about the corporate shaman, where we are in our daily activities as work and professionals. We can influence the professional world as a corporate shaman and not just follow the pack, but actually lead and take inspiration to help guide some of these undertakings. Or we become the entrepreneur and learn how to take on new adventures, new beginnings. I love a brother who talked about the new energy systems. I'm involved in solar and electrical work and energy, and I'm just fascinated by the possibilities there. So entrepreneurship is so important. And that comes down to the last couple of cards I drew up today, which one is to become the Jedi, right? We are the sacred keepers of this beautiful, powerful wisdom that we all have access to. And as we become the Jedi, we become the warrior that protects the sacred wisdoms, that protects Mother Earth, protects Father Sky, that protects the world very powerfully, because we're the keepers of the wisdom, and we use that wisdom to help bring balance and harmony. And in doing so, we touch in to our archangels. And by lighting up our chakra centers, we stay in tune and create the magic that creates, impacts the world. Even though we may not be doing it on a physical level, through spiritual level, through our archangel, we're lighting up our chakras, and we're aligning those chakras with other chakra centers. And all of us angels continue to light up and fascinate the world and bring change that man cannot stop or alter. With that, my dearly beloveds, I am in. Thank you very much for the time. Blessings.
Richard, just with the few minutes we have left, I do want to take any, we're going to open up as a round table, but could you just share a few more of the cards and the different archetypes? They're so powerful, and I know that there's so many that people relate to, and then we'll finish the broadcast.
Thank you, my brother. Once again, these were based on, well, here's Buddha, Hermes, oh my God, the Sumerian. Talk about, where did we come from? Whew, the Sumerians will tell you. Here's the Renaissance man, commander. How are you taking command of your own ship? And being in the state of command, how are you able to follow commands? And are those commands something you align with, right? Here's Ra. Whoo, that's some magic, my friends. Lucifer, how did he make it in the deck? Well, Lucifer is that we are in our own free will experiment. And when our free will goes awry, we turn into Lucifer, usually having to do with addictions, when we cannot break free from addictions because our will is overimposing over God's will. Apollo, I'll let you learn this one on your own. And thank you very much for some time. Here's the lovers. We have God itself as part of the God card deck. Now, these are masculine archetypes, and there's 55 of them. It's a beautiful deck for using to work with people to help rebalance their divine masculine attributes in a balance with divine feminine. One of the things I find is we hear this so much about toxic masculine. And my brothers and sisters, I'm trying to find toxic masculine here right now. The tyrant. Ooh, yeah. Mr. Tyrant, the only thing we can control is I can control my life. I'm a tyrant over my own life. As soon as I try to be a tyrant over your life, that gets toxic. And the point being here, so many of these attributes of these cards are overexpressed, become toxic, but underexpressed or balanced expressed become the divine divinity of these masculine attributes. And again, man, woman, gender identity, undeclared, masculine archetypes is a way to impress upon the world and create change and benevolence. How about that, my dear brothers and sisters? Tyrant of my own life. Whew. Don't get stuck in your shadow, because, you know, that can happen too. And one of my favorites, the trickster. Just keep the levity going. And here, shout out to Brother Davin Infinity, the visionary artist who did the beautiful artwork with these cards. Thank you.